Sometimes nothing special. It's everything I need.
His newly released single, his story, his journey. My sit down with the very talented Michael Daughtry next on the PowerPLAY Show.
From the studios at Hull Bay Productions, this is Season 4 of the PowerPLAY Show.
Welcome to the PowerPLAY. I'm your host, Kimberly Perez, talking to musician Michael Daughtry while Tonya takes some time off. Michael is a singer and songwriter, plays both the piano and the guitar, and has received much praise from a range of artists. And today, I'm thrilled to welcome Michael Daughtry to the PowerPLAY Show. Michael, tell us a little bit about your music.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for having me. And so my music has been, as an artist, it takes a journey just like we take a journey. But overall, I think the overall arc of what the sounds that have been sort of thematic throughout my career are in somewhere in the pop, rock, jazz, and folk spaces. That's how I've been told to describe it. That's how I sort of hear it as well. So I tend to gravitate more towards music from a certain era, sort of like overall the late 70s and the early 80s. That was like, a really, really potent time in music in my ears. It was sort of when I was a baby and growing up. So I really sort of gravitate towards that sound, and it sort of comes through in my music. So I've been told there was a playlist that I have been on for about a year and a half that I really love the title of, that I used to describe the music. It's the new wave of yacht rock. So it's sort of new wave sounds at times, a little electronic sounds, or it could be completely acoustic, but it keeps that sort of vibe of like, sort of late, a little easy listening, but at times can have like more of a rock sound.
Oh, hello, my love, we'll meet me on 7th Avenue, just as that old sun goes down. Tomorrow, dispose of the hang-ups from other avenues. Hands up, we'll have fun.
Obviously, you were exposed as a child to music. So 80s and 70s, what were you listening to?
Well, sort of things that even at an early age I was captivated by, because for those who do not know, I was born and raised in North Carolina in a small town, called Newton Grove, and so we were mostly exposed to sort of maybe country music and maybe a little bit of rock, classic rock, things like that. But there was always this music I would hear like in the grocery stores or in the local drugstore or the dentist office. My brother and I kind of kid around. It's called, we call it dentist music, music that you'd hear sort of like Steely Dan and Doobie Brothers. Yeah, sort of the later Doobie Brothers. And of course, in the 80s, end up listening to, music like Prince and Michael Jackson, the sort of, the Off the Wall and Thriller albums and things like that. And just kind of got into all of that sound, a little bit of R&B influence, of course. And so, yeah, all of those things, just kind of like put it in a blender, put it out there, and that's the sound that you usually get.
Shaking this burden down, throw it into the sound. High tide will roll, sink it to a shifting ground. Taking this wave of loss, swimming all the way across.
have some influences like Bruce Springsteen and
Right.
John Cougar Mellencamp. You hear that at times. But you also hear, some classic rock. You hear some R&B. It's kind of all over the place at times.
A lot of musicians say the perks of getting into music business is for fame. Does that matter to you?
Well, at times I am human. It is wonderful for a large number of people to approve and give a sense of like you're doing the right thing. I mean, we all like that sort of nurturing. I mean, I think we're natured that way in some respects, but it is not. I always sort of, the older I get, the more I realize that a lot of that is there's a message and, there are themes in humanity. I think it's more important to feel connected to other people as opposed to other people saying how wonderful I am as an artist. So I usually find the most success not when I'm like, hey, look at me, but as opposed to like, this is how I'm feeling. Can you relate to it? And when they relate to it, then it's like, oh, we're connecting. That's where it is.
Okay, so what does that connection feel like?
So it's usually, it's like an instant sort of, I don't know, like a spark. It kind of like, a spiritual spark, if you even want to go in that direction. It's like, and it's usually based on like body language or facial expressions. Like if you're performing, be it on stage or on the street corner, I've done all of those. I still do all of those. And so if I see a certain line or a certain musical chord progression or a melody, like just sort of like hit people or interest people, then that's sort of like I instantly go back to maybe where I was at the time that was written. And then there's that connection. So it feels it's a really wonderful feeling and very gratifying, I have to say.
Now, you're married and have a beautiful daughter. How much do they play a role in your music?
Quite a bit. I do write some of, not all of my music, but a bit of my music is biographical and based on my marriage and my family life and things like that. The EP that I'm releasing in September is very related to that. It's very related to family and sort of, kind of the trials and the good and the bad, the pros and the cons of day-to-day life and things like that. It also deals with grief quite a bit. So I've had some things in my life happen. My dad passed away last year, and that was, very much, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. That was very much a catalyst for several of the songs that will be featured on the EP in the fall. So family life and home life it's pretty important. I mean, it's, I feel like if you make that commitment, then it's going to come into, all facets of your life, and in a good way.
Right.
So yes, quite a bit. I would say the short answer is quite a bit.
So you have a new release called Nothing Special.
Yes.
A little bit about that song and what the inspiration was for
Absolutely.
that song?
I would love to. So Nothing Special. It was written during the pandemic, like a lot of songs, like a lot of songwriters, what else? We couldn't perform unless it was live streams, which I did some of that as well. But, it was a time to really dig into that. So I sort of kind of went back in time quite a bit. So I had several things that were either made for me or given to me by loved ones. This, I feel like, is something most of us can relate to and connect to. So the first part was I talk about a blanket that I use, and and how maybe some people, look at it and they're like, well, that's not a, it's kind of a little worn out. It's not a, not a high thread count. It's not a fancy blanket or by any means. But by the end of the song, I end up saying it was made for me by my grandmother. So it has that special, very, very special meaning to me. And so it kind of represents also how strong having a loving family, especially in the first few years of life, those impressionable years, how extremely important that is. And so I feel like most of us can relate, and maybe they, maybe someone has, a piece of a wood carving that their dad or their uncle made for them, or one of the verses I talk about a luggage set that my granddad gave me, and it was a really old kind of beat up looking luggage set, but I was in college at the time, so I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And so and my granddad left me a pocket watch, which I like keep in a very, very safe place. I'm like, we're never getting it out unless it's like a very, very special occasion. So I feel like we can all relate to those things, that they represent the relationship that we had with them and how important it is. And even if those things wear out and wear down and tear up and all that stuff, that feeling and that foundation is just, it's there. It's as strong there as it was when we were kids. So that's nothing special. I love talking about this song. It's very meaningful to me, and I feel like it's going to be meaningful for a lot of people.
Okay, well then, can we hear it?
Of course you can. Yeah, so I'm gonna play it a little bit. I'm gonna do my best here, because it's I tell people, so I'm in marketing mode. Sometimes it's kind of hard to be in marketing mode and perform to the best of your ability, but at the same time, let's give it a whirl. So this is Nothing Special. Woo-hoo. Well, sometimes nothing special is everything to me. My blanket wears some tatters, but sends me right to sleep. Some laugh at this, a low thread count, but each one counts to me. Well, sometimes nothing special, it's everything I need. My suitcase is so worn out, I get my share of stares. But where I've been and who I love still takes me everywhere. So get the greatest pleasure from lavish luxury. But sometimes nothing special, it's everything I need. My grandma's woven blanket and my grandpa's luggage set, they take much further than trains and cars and jets. 'Cause in the end, that feeling will last eternally. 'Cause sometimes nothing special, it's everything I need. During that era, of course, I did go back to a very familial theme. Of course, getting back to my dad, he wasn't in the best of health during that era, and we had, as many people, we had that anxiety of, if he goes downhill, we won't be able to see them. You know, all those flood of emotions and kind of anxiety. It was pretty wild time for a lot of us. So anyway, but I sort of approach lyric writing and songwriting in sort of a two paths. So there's one that's just disciplined. I mean, like, I write every day a little bit, even if it's just complete, you know, what I feel like not useful stuff. But then, of course, when the sparks come, if it's in the middle of the night, I'm like a lot of songwriters, I leave a little recording device really close by. I make sure that because I'm also easily distracted like most of us, and I make sure that I have it set to where I can only record. I'm not going to get on, I'm not going to get on anything else and start to trail off and get in a rabbit hole. So I'll have a recording device close by me in case, because every once in a while in the middle of the night, something comes up. I have this kind of radio in my head. This may sound a little off, but I have a radio in my head at times that I feel like, and I hear these songs and they just kind of come to me, and it's usually in a dream state. So I kind of go with the two approaches. I write some every day, no matter what. You know, of course, you can't, it's like anything else. You have to take a break occasionally, but I try and stay disciplined with the writing.
How are you sparked? Like, how do you write? Like, what sparks you to write something? Do you just hear voices in your head?
Yeah, and sometimes it's expressions. I'm really big on almost cliches or expressions, but then, you know, they're cliche for a reason. So it's like there's usually fertile ground to explore multiple meanings of expressions. So Nothing Special is a classic example. It's like, you know, when somebody says nothing special, there, you know, in this case, it is actually really special because it's special to each of us individually, you know, when we have a strong, loving family and things like that. So it just comes from the everyday. It comes from special occasions. You know, anything can spark a song. That's the beauty and the madness at times of songwriting.
So side picked on once and a teacher twice. You let me choose to renew or wither. In my time, I see the things I need to change. I'm tired of that fun. I've dug myself this hole to crawl. Hell, done with being cool. You've always treated me kind. Well, I've been such a silly fool. You're seeing it in my eyes. I'm longing for your sweet forgiveness.
Was there a little bit of gospel influence?
Oh, absolutely. I was raised, I was sort of raised, raised in the church, of course. And, growing up here in the South, we had gospel sings and things like that. I mean, we still do, obviously. It's funny. It's interesting to me how the pandemic sort of, like, I have seen the past few years, a lot more of those tent revivals here in our area, which I'm just sort of like, wow, that's like, you know, I haven't seen those in decades, and here they are again. So, but yeah, there's definite gospel influence in the song. For sure.
Online streaming, I want to talk about, has brought huge changes to the music industry. And it's made it possible for some artists to become big stars. And so now you can publish your own music without needing a publishing deal. And music consumers can easily find your music and listen to your music. How can this play into your music career?
So I am a what we call a working, living creative, which means, you know, I've been in it long enough. I don't want to say exactly how long, but I've been in it a few decades. So I've seen a lot of changes. The streaming industry has definitely, the past decade has changed things quite a bit. I think in a good way, it has made it more accessible for other artists, for lots of different artists to have um like their path. It's like there are more paths, there are more ways to get to where you need to be, which is by making music. To me, okay, the why is so important. So my why is to enhance people's daily lives through music. So that is like a big, that's how I frame things. So it's like there are times when I think, well, yeah, it would have been great to have a record deal then, but I myself was not prepared to, provide what needed to be provided. So as far as publishing, I am my own publishing. So it's called Music Daughtry Michael. I had to change the words around because someone else had the name. But long and short of it, you can, as a songwriter, you can set up your own publishing company and sort of distribute it on your own. I distribute my music, through all the streaming platforms. I'm one of those people. So far, I haven't seen any company or that I'm like, totally against. That might happen in the future because, we all are. I kind of feel like we have our sort of causes and things. So, we're always, as artists, I feel like we should be making sure that we don't say yes to everything. So, so that we don't get caught in any kind of situation that we're like, I didn't know I was a part of that. I don't want that. So keep up with what companies, who's bought out who, and you have to kind of have somewhat of a business, even if you don't want to. It's like work. It's like my mom always said, if it feels like I don't want to do this, well, then it's work. And if you feel like it needs to be done to get to your goal, then you just do the work.
So now, have you had any major challenges or setbacks?
Well, as far as professionally, I don't feel like I've had any setbacks. Anytime you've had loss, personal loss, I always feel like that can, I don't even know if setback is the right word, but it can sort of put on pause the aspirations that we have. But to be honest, I really try and stay as much as possible because I'm human and I get in those voices sometimes of the comparison and rejection and fear of rejection. But I try and stay positive as much as possible and just kind of think of setbacks as opportunities.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, rejection is hard.
It is. And we get rejected all the time as musicians.
Yeah. Sure. Well, what advice would you give a musician just starting out?
Well, I would say do as much of it as you can without burning out. I would say make sure, this is something we all have to keep aware of. You set goals. Be very goal oriented. But be realistic. Make sure that the goals you have are for the right reasons. I mean, as you were saying earlier, just fame by itself, like just to say, I want 1 million followers on Instagram. Well, I mean, I don't know. No one knows the future. There may not even be an Instagram 10 years from now, right? So you want to get away from those numbers and what we call vanity goals in the industry. So, and you want to be a little more idealistic in your goals as far as, you want to think things like, I want people to feel a certain emotion. Like that's my, I want to enhance people's whatever, it's like you have to think more in that way.
Hey, I'm alive when you come alive. Heads up, double, another run, get another one.
This industry can vary. I mean, you can get, offers and proposals sometimes that you're like, whoa, like that's so. And if you're really wanting certain things, if you're wanting success, you can easily fall victim to being in the wrong place or just, falling for the wrong things. So
yeah. So
just stay grounded, stay yourself. Don't abandon those that have supported you, just stay true to yourself. It's a cliche, but it is for a reason. It's like you have to be that way, right?
There's a song that Tonya loves, and she would be mad if I didn't have you introduce it.
All right. Well, this is Michael Daughtry and The Drift, Drive All Night.
Tightly wrapped like a top here on my dashboard. I wanna wag it wild like a dog's tail at your door. If you would drape it by your side, I'd give my life to you completely. We'll get to sleep when we're dead, so come on. Drive all night. I wanna drive. Drive all night. I'm gonna ride. All right, if you wanna take the wheel, let's make it real. I wanna lay the soft cushion back, give it slack, get relaxed before we start up. We got that sinking feeling, that's why we need to go. Those shimmer tassel earrings strum my heartstrings up, then down so sweetly. They shine the green up ahead, so let's roll. Drive all night, I wanna drive. Drive all night, I'm alright. All right, if you wanna take the wheel, let's make it real. Let's go.
That was great. Can you tell our audience the meaning behind the song?
I was in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and what they call the Nova area, the Northern Virginia area, for about a week. It was a pretty long time. I try not to be gone that long of a period of time, but I had a series of dates, gigs, and things that I was doing up there. And so I had a Saturday night gig in Northern Virginia, and then I drove back because I needed to get back, So anyway, long and short of it, I was in Richmond, Virginia, on 95, around 12:30 at night on a Saturday, which was a pretty wild time to be on I-95 in downtown Richmond. So because as you all know, or as if you don't know, Richmond downtown is really close to 95. Like if there are two ways to get on 95 or to go through 95. Long and short of it, I was really close to downtown. So there was a giant swarm of cars going really fast, and they were like the Fast and the Furious type cars, all souped up, had the neon lights underneath, and so they kind of surrounded me. I think it was sort of like a car culture way of kind of maybe picking on me a little bit, because I was driving a Kia Rio. Okay. So I had this, not so fancy car, and I'm just driving it, and they like swarm around me and like kind of make me get faster. I was like, I don't want to get a ticket. I'm like, I do not want to go through that hassle, but it was sort of like just happened that way. Oh, there's that. So, as I was getting faster and faster, like this is what this kind of got in my head, and then I just sort of heard this little, and it just kind of like kept going and going and going. So long and short of it, that's kind of how the song came about. And I was just like, yeah, this is pretty cool. So that's the story.
Do lyrics or music move? What comes first? The lyrics or the music?
Most of the time, Kimberly, music comes first. Every once in a while, there'll be an expression that just really, like I gotta put a song with that in it. But most of the time, the music, some sort of drum beat or melody, or it could even be a little progression of chords, a little group of chords. Any of those things can start it.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
What's your favorite song? Do you have one? That's hard, right?
It is.
You have one?
One comes to mind. Let's Go Crazy by Prince. I can never get enough of that song. Yeah. I love the energy of it. I just love it. I can't get enough of it.
Prince was a great musician.
Absolutely. And very prolific, and there were things, like we sort of learned by other artists, like so he was such a workhorse, as they say. Sometimes he didn't collaborate, like, I don't know, relatively for other artists. Like, I try and collaborate. I'm trying to get more into collaborating. If you live too much in your own space, in your own world, it's like that can still be good, but like I say, moderation. But he's definitely one of my favorite artists and performers, and just amazing. So
cool, very cool. So as we wind down, you have doing anything? Do you have any touring this summer or anything like that?
Yes. So we were actually starting. So with this single, we are doing what's called a media-based radio campaign, which means that the single is going to be shot to radio markets, secondary and primary radio markets, but mainly secondary markets. We're really I'm on this big journey to try and get on the Billboard charts in the adult contemporary category. So we're sort of hitting what's called the AC market quite a bit this summer. I also have I don't have a tour, because to me a tour constitutes being gone. I even consider, if it's a half week, or more, that's a tour. If it's a week or two, that's a mini tour. If it's over 2 weeks, it's a tour. So I don't really have a quote unquote tour going, but I'm playing several things. July 4th, I'll be at the Festival for the Eno. That's in Durham, North Carolina. Backing up a little bit, I'll be downtown Chapel Hill for a series they do. That's Saturday night, June 24th. And so, I'll be playing a drive-in movie theater. With the Drive All Night, I get to play. There's some drive-in theaters that ask me to play before their movies. That is a ton of fun. I know. How much fun is this? This is like dream come true stuff. I love doing that. And that will be at the Raleigh Road Outdoor Theater, July the 22nd. So all of those, will be.
That must just be in the South. I never heard of that.
It's a thing. And July, it's like, actually, it's funny because I know different places it's different, but in here in the South, we don't play a whole lot in July. It is just too hot. I have some dates in July that I'll, let everybody, you can find out about on the website, michaeldaughtrymusic.com. But we don't play a whole lot and if we do, it's later in the afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, last but not least, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
I want you to finish this sentence. Music to me is
life. Music is life.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, okay. So, Michael Daughtry, thank you so much for being a guest today. And
this has been a pleasure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was that?
I said this has been a pleasure. Sorry to interrupt.
Same here. And can you tell our audience where they can find and purchase your music? And we're also going to have the information on our website. So, but could you tell our where they can find and purchase your music?
Of course. So you can get on michaeldaughtrymusic.com, and I will have a link that has, all of the purchasing options and the streaming options. Some people like Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We try and tell people, the best way to support is to do both, to download and stream the song. So like you download it and then you own it forever, and that could be through Amazon Music, iTunes, or of course Bandcamp. So anyway, get on michaeldaughtrymusic.com. That's the main sort of, you can portal into all the ways to purchase and stream the music.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the PowerPLAY Show.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
And that's it for this edition of the PowerPLAY Show. Until next time, I'm Kimberly Perez. Thank you for tuning in. And Michael, can you play us out?
All right. Very good. Very, very good.